I am thrilled to be talking to a Model Y owner. And we are going to talk about his Model Y purchase because I know he wants to, because he's really excited. But Brian, there's other breaking news. And, my crowd is going to be mad at me tomorrow because I said the stock will be at 275 by Halloween. And I think we're going to be closer to 175 than 275.
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah.
thinking that I'm going to turn it over to you. From now on, I'm going to let you make the stock predictions.
Well, I don't make stock predictions is the thing. All I can say is that their execution is such that they are likely to outperform the market over the long term. And that has been true. When I invested in Tesla, when I took 75% of my retirement account and put it into Tesla in 2019, my horizon was that was based strictly on the strength of Fremont Model 3 and the as yet half built Shanghai factory, Giga Shanghai. And my thought was, I believe over 10 years, this will outperform the market. And I did okay.
I'm sure you did. so,
Yeah.
so anyway, what I wanted to talk about is your car first, though. We'll come back to that financial breaking news because I do have a theory, and I want you to hear the theory and see what you think of my theory. All right.
Mm-hmm.
But
I'm ready.
You picked up a car. I'm sure you've already put 1,000 miles on it.
Not 1,000. I checked because you asked 229.
229 since Saturday. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
you have been driving it a bit. So did you have a good turnout for your pickup?
Yeah, we had 15, 20 people there. Pretty good. Pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they had a good time watching you exude your enthusiasm.
Well, I wouldn't go that far, but I would go 229 miles. So
there you go. Exactly that far.
Mm-hmm.
And so what do you think after 229 miles?
So a bunch of impressions. First of all, once you've decided to trade in your 2016 Nissan Quest, there is not a car in the world that's got more squeaks and rattles. I am annoyed that I put really good tires on it 6 months ago, that I just put new brakes on it like 3 weeks ago. But hey, it's fine. When I got there, I was not prepared for how quick and painless it was going to be. I'd been told, but literally he goes, here's, 8 sheets of paper. We already highlighted where you need to sign. Take as much time as you want or as little. And I went through them. They were all standard and signed them, and great. You have the check. Yeah, here you go. Okay. Do you want us to go out there with you? Or, I mean, it's the one right there with the blinkers, with the hazards flashing. And rather than have them walk me through it, they offered to. I had fans who were like, no, 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 no. We shall do this with you. We want to be in the car. So they joined me, got it all set up. Now I've driven enough Teslas to know how they drive, how they work, because I've done road trips basically, down to California, up to Canada, down through Texas, in a variety of different Teslas. I've driven 3, 4 X's. I've driven a bunch of Y's. I don't know if I've driven a 3. I haven't driven an S, but I know how I've got it. I got it. So I've talked to other drivers who were like, wow, my first day regen was very hard to wrap my head around. But I went through that last year in Texas, so I understood what to expect. And yeah, the first drive, everything was great. Everything was just fine. The FSD is still not up to my liking, but it wasn't turned on until maybe until we'd driven home. When we got back in the car, it said, good news, everything's calibrated, FSD's ready to go. And then we let that do more of the driving. And I'll be honest, I like to autopilot better than FSD. So there are times, and my oldest has quite a bit of anxiety. He's autistic, and I will not use FSD with him in the car because its erratic behavior is not agree is not, it doesn't work with him. So
Yes, yes.
I just drive manually, and I may just switch it back out to autopilot for those
Mhm,
drives
mhm.
and go from there. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's not an unusual a place to be. A lot of people do like autopilot better. I personally like autopilot better so far, but my wife has now switched to using FSD quite a bit of the time. So,
I'll be.
and it's her car, and it's her car. So I mean,
That is also, here's the thing that really got me. So we drove home, we plugged it in. I don't have a 220 yet. So we plugged it into just a mobile charger, which was given to me graciously by the president of the Southwest Washington Owners Club. He says, I've got two. I was going to sell it anyway. Buy me a sandwich and I'll give it to you. And I was like, that's a great deal. And he's a great guy. So when we got home and plugged it in, I went and took a nap because I couldn't sleep the night before. I obviously slept, but just not enough. So I took a nap, got up, and we said, you know what? Let's get in the car. We're going to go somewhere. We'll get dessert or something. I don't know. So we drove all the way to Portland, past Portland, and realized, yeah, we should probably charge. So I put in a charger, and then I got there and realized I haven't set up my account.
oh,
So we pull up and I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to plug it in and see what happens. And it starts charging. I'm like, uh-oh, who's paying for this? And I pull up my app and I look at it. It's the card I used to make the initial payment.
yeah, exactly.
Of course, I already have an account. So that worked great.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it.
No, it's
And
the simplest. It's so simple.
And uh, so I see another car there. They're very excited too. And they had just bought their Model 3 Performance that day, used. They got up in the morning. They knew they needed a car. They were not going to buy an electric. And then they saw a Performance Model 3 for 40 grand. And they were like, I'm getting it. And the guy goes, and it's great because the charging is free. And I said, no. He goes, well, who's paying for it? I'm like, well, if I had to guess, I'd say CarMax. So
Yeah.
maybe top it off. And actually, I did have to help them understand. They're like, yeah, we're almost to 100%. I'm like, oh my gosh, you must have been here for 3 days. Don't charge to 100. Don't do that. Charge to 80 and unplug. And yeah, so there's a learning curve for people outside of Teslaverse.
Oh,
to
absolutely. And in fact,
that
just
figured
like
out.
any computer, there's a learning curve forever, because you're never going to use all the stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, like every computer, you know, like your phone, there's bajillions of things that you don't even know exist, much less ever use. So that's very, very exciting. I'm glad to hear you're now a true member of the community.
Sure. Sure. I would add, there was a comment I saw on X this morning where one of my followers had said, I'm glad that, as an influencer, you're finally getting one of these cars. It's very frustrating to me that so many influencers don't have them. And I said, so just gotta, again, not an influencer. This ain't selling lifestyle brands. I'm an analyst. And I bought the stock and I analyzed the stock and the factories. And this, there's nobody that knows those factories like I do.
Right.
And my numbers and my analysis have managed to overcome the curb appeal or lack thereof. So it's been a long road, but we're getting there, man. We're getting there.
All right. I want to turn now to my theory.
Let's hear
And
it.
I broke this theory. I broke the news this morning, and I didn't really know how much I was breaking when I broke it, or when something like that. Anyway, but what I was saying this morning is that we now have a third narrative. So we have the Tesla narrative, which is Tesla's going to grow 50% per year. They've got all these other things that they're doing that's just going to be icing on the cake. And eventually are going to be the biggest things in Tesla, like Optimus and like Robotaxi, et cetera. The cars will become a smaller division, if you will, of the overall company over time. So we have this whole Tesla narrative that's Elon Musk, the mighty. So all these narratives regarding Tesla, and sometimes that narrative breaks down and the stock will go down as a result of that narrative having a chink in its armor. Okay. And that happened a little bit last week or 2 weeks ago when we had the earnings call. Okay. Now then you have the economic narrative, or the economic and the stock market narrative. So the recent stock market narrative was inflation is dead. Business is still great. Interest rates will go down because, inflation is dead. And so, hallelujah, the stocks should all be going up, except that both the S&P and the NASDAQ are now in correction. So the part of the narrative that got crushed was by the Fed not being willing to let go of the idea that they were going to continue to raise rates and buy bonds, 30-year bonds, continuing to go higher. So those are the two narratives that I've been playing around with on the channel. We have a third narrative now, and this is the EV narrative.
Uh-oh.
Everything about the EV thing was clear until 2 weeks ago. EVs were going to continue to increase 50% a year, worldwide, nationwide. Everything was just, the more EVs that were coming out, that would just make more opportunities for people to buy EVs. All good. So if anybody that can make a compelling product at a compelling price, they're going to sell all they can make. Well, Tesla began to put a chink in that narrative with their earnings call, saying, well, these interest rates, and we're going to have not as great a quarter and no real evidence of what we're going to do next year. And then General Motors and Ford and Mercedes and Toyota and BMW all came out, and they're all like, oh, we're cutting back our investment. Oh, we're not going to make as many EVs. Oh, we're getting slaughtered. We can't stand it. And then finally, in my little narrative this morning, we've got BYD coming out this morning. Didn't hit their numbers. They did well, but they didn't hit their numbers, what they had projected in their last earnings call, and they had negative free cash flow by a significant amount. And then we had Panasonic come out, and Panasonic goes, oh, we're cutting back our battery manufacturing in Japan because we're the luxury autos in the United States. I don't know what they meant by luxury autos in the United States.
Could be
buying,
anything.
I don't know. Who are they talking about? Aren't buying as many as our batteries as we thought they were. And then Gary Black, I didn't bring that article up. Gary Black talked about another chip company that came out with negative earnings or unexpectedly low earnings this morning. And they said that the chip sales were down in the EV sector that was a big part of who they sell. So all of a sudden the narrative now is this might be a pause in the EV. It doesn't say a breakdown. It didn't say this is the end of EVs, but a pause in the, expected market for EVs. What do you think about all of that?
I made notes, so my apologies to folks watching, thinking I'm not paying attention. I am actually taking notes. So I have a different theory on why the market is moving in ways that are unpredictable, and that is the explosion in high frequency trading algorithms over the last 5 years. They've gotten very, very, very good. And the problem is, as soon as it's perfect, it breaks. Because as soon as it works, it doesn't work. And so they're playing an impossible game of catch up against each other. And it creates, like we've said on previous shows, if I was to tell you, here's what's going to happen at these different delivery and production, whatever, you think you'd be able to trade on it, but you can't because it's not predictable anymore because it's all run by those. I don't know what percentage of these moves are actually real people really trading. Everybody I know is already as all in as they can get for the most part. Now,
and buying this morning.
Well, and that's the thing is there are new floors that you'll hit where once it gets under 200, a lot of people just start buying again, and that pushes it up a little bit. And there's floors and ceilings throughout.
Right.
Now, one thing I have seen in the last week heavily in comments on my videos is this amazing trend of people saying, oh, EVs are over. Tesla's missing numbers. The other guys are faltering. GM is postponing stuff. Ford is postponing stuff. It's over. But all of these accounts have something in common, and that is that they're not subscribers. They're brand new accounts. They have no videos posted. Most of them have no profile pictures, and they're using the same language. And a lot of them are appearing on videos that are not getting a lot of views. So if I get 10 almost identical comments on a video that's out of date and not necessarily super relevant, it throws up some red flags for me.
Sounds
It
like it
sounds
could
like
be bot
a fossil fuel funded misinformation campaign.
or
The EV,
Toyota or GM.
sure,
Yeah.
sure. But I'm getting the same comments on GM article videos and Toyota articles or videos. So it's at any rate, it could also be real people. It doesn't fit the mold of real people. It definitely feels artificial. I've moderated enough communities to recognize when there is a trend that doesn't fit,
Right.
and start scratching my head and asking where these people are coming from. And in those communities, you can often find it because they come from somewhere specific that's public. But in this case, it was just too orchestrated and precise, and wholly unsupported by the data. EVs are not a trend. They are here. The mandates haven't changed. Well, the US will scale back their mandate. It doesn't matter. If General Motors doesn't want to make EVs, they will be limited to doing business in the US, and that is not enough business for them. That will kill them. You can survive the strike better than you can survive cutting off all international sales. Well, they'll just sell in Latin America and Africa. Guys, there's no margin there, and other people are already competing there better.
Oh,
That's
yes.
why that's a reason they've never gone there. Do you really want to compete on $8,000 cars? It's not going to happen. BYD's numbers did surprise me because they went from positive 1.7 billion cash flow to negative $500 million. And that's kind of surprising. Panasonic saying that there's less demand for luxury autos in the US that use our batteries has to be Tesla. Because I just looked, Lucid's using LG and Rivian's using Samsung. Okay. So we're not talking about them. Right. Who's left? The dance card is empty. Yes. So, but I don't know how many S and X models they were planning to sell. And all the 3 and Y batteries are coming out of Nevada, so that wouldn't impact Japanese production.
And they said, in fact, they said U.S. production was fine. They were perfectly happy with the U.S. production. Yes.
For sure. So there's a lot of factors at play, and I don't know which ones are going to be the relevant ones, but I really think the biggest one is these high frequency algorithm trading situation is an unknowable beast. Well, I love people who say, I've got this chart I made. Right. Buddy, your chart, I'm sure, looks like it was scribbled in crayon compared to the algorithms that I've met some of the people who work on these teams. Sure. And the dumbest guy on that team would still blow your mind with the way they think and how they're able to wrap their head around very complicated problems.
Yeah, and a part of what my channel is all about is I believe all of it matters. So the guys who have those algorithms matter. The guys who are the technical experts matter. I feel about technical the opposite of the way that you feel about the algorithm. So the algorithm guys get it until everybody gets it, and then it doesn't work anymore. But the technical guys, they're a self-fulfilling prophecy because the group that believes in this particular one is always going to do that at that moment. And so, of course, it's going to self-fulfill. But fundamentals matter and whales matter, major guys.
If Ellison sold,
whales matter. All that matters. And overall, as I've watched it for longer than many of my listeners have been alive, because I started when I was 18 playing the market. Okay. So that's a long time ago, almost before the market.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
there was before there was a market. No, I'm kidding. Anyway,
Right. No, there was loud guys screaming on
yes,
dinosaurs. I remember.
yes, that's exactly. But it wasn't a time where if you wanted to see a stock ticker, you had to go down to the local branch of Merrill Lynch and watch it go across the screen. They had this screen at the top of the in that room.
Yeah.
Anyway, my point only is narrative really matters. And if the narrative breaks down, this is one of the things that has to be cured before you can really, it has to be cured in one way or another. So would you think that all of that noise that was real, including from Tesla over the last 2 weeks, might cause people to think, you know what, in the short term, the next 3 to 6 months, we might not see the kind of sales of EVs that we were expecting to over the next 6 months?
From other brands, certainly. I don't know if it would impact Tesla sales, but it could definitely impact the stock. I would
Impact the
take issue.
thinking is what I'm talking about.
I would take issue. There was one thing you said that I very strongly want to disagree with. And that was, you said that your channel is mostly for investors and people and humans and bots. And I thought your channel was mostly for Cybertruck bottle openers.
That's what we do. That's, yeah, that's, here we are. This is just
I
one
don't
more
have
time
mine.
now. Let me tell you all about it. Well, I have probably mentioned to you that I started selling for a living when I was 5.
Oh,
I was
I
selling.
wasn't that young. I was in elementary school and I wrote in from an ad in the comic book and I
Yeah,
sold stationery to my neighbors door to door. And it was great, cheap greeting cards and things like
that's what I
that.
was selling. That's what I
Oh,
was selling.
really? Oh, fun.
Midwest greeting card company. Yeah,
Might have been the same company.
could have been. Look at
Yeah.
that. I knew there was something about you, Brian.
I was also a paper boy
Oh yeah,
in 5th
of
grade,
course, of course.
back when that was a thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
But my biggest memory of the paper route, though, Brian, maybe I don't know if yours was similar. Mine was a weekly. I'm sorry, it wasn't. I don't think it was daily. I think it was a weekly, and once a month I had to go around and collect from my subscribers
Yep.
20 cents.
Mine was $1.80.
And well, I'm much younger than you. 20
Yeah.
cents, and sometimes the people didn't have it.
Oh, so mine was worse because it was a free newspaper and you would pay the paper boy as a courtesy and you weren't
Yeah.
required to. And a lot of people on the route, I'd come and say, can I have, and I don't remember if it was $1.80. It might have been 80 cents, but it was some ridiculous little amount.
Small number.
And a lot of these tight-fisted bastards would just say, no,
Yeah.
no, I'm sorry, little kid. Thank you for pedaling your bike all the way to my house with a newspaper. I'm not giving you the change in my pocket. So
Well, I don't want to completely leave this subject without talking a little bit about what might break the narrative the other direction. And a lot of Gary Black this morning was probably the most optimistic I've ever heard him over on X. And he was
Wow.
talking about the Cybertruck. One part of his conversation was the Cybertruck and how it's going to impact the future narrative for Tesla, because it is going to be, I've said it's going to be the most photographed product in history. And I've looked it up and I found out that Marilyn Monroe, and there was somebody else, but I bet it's Taylor Swift now. Anyway, there was a couple of people that were the most photographed person. And then the Eiffel Tower might have been the most photographed architectural
Physical.
item. But I think that the Cybertruck might end up being the most photographed product in history as it hits the streets here in a few weeks. And that could change the narrative back to where EVs are a big thing.
Yeah. And we've got a lot to find out on November 30th. And I am excited to hopefully go and see something.
Do you have a price? Do you think you have a theory yet on what it's going to sell for out the door? The first ones?
Nope. Nope.
Theory.
The cheapest one, I'd be shocked if it's under 70. Well, I'd be shocked if it's under 69,420.
Right.
But I think it's going to be more like 80, 85.
On the initial, the first 100, the first 10,000 or 20,000 or whatever.
Yeah. Because anything short of that, you're just throwing money away.
Right. People will just be,
because people will be flipping them
right,
as already for 200, I'm sure.
Oh, you know, you do know that on eBay, people are selling the reservations for 10 grand.
Good luck making sure that transaction goes through.
That is one of the issues. And people are making disclaimers. You're paying for this 10,000, but don't come back to me if you can't get it to work.
Yeah, that's good luck.
Yeah. All right, Brian. Well, listen, congratulations on your new car.
You.
And thank you very much for helping to kind of work through this whole narrative issue, because I think it's important. I think it's going to be for those who care about what happens to the stock in the next 30 days. The narrative, I think, is going to be a big piece of what might happen. Although I also, just one last thought, the 10 or 12 bucks that it's down today might be the whole thing. That might be, okay, we're going to take you down 12 bucks because of this narrative change. And after that, it'll go back to its normal process. Maybe.
Yeah, could be. I see no reason why any number is any better or worse than another one.
Because you're in for 10 years.
Right. Over the short term, it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Yeah. Brian, thanks again, as always. It's been great.
Thanks, Randy.
And for all of you out there, it's been great talking to you.